Thanks for watching Endgame Economics. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it helps us continue making more videos like this.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something pretty wild: the rise of prediction markets, and how we're essentially decoding a truth engine. Now imagine if you could know with scary accuracy exactly what's going to happen in the world tomorrow. For literally decades, we've relied on the experts, right? The pollsters, the pundits on TV. But recently, a crowd of completely anonymous internet traders completely outforecasted the traditional polling industry, an industry that, by the way, spent a cool $250 million trying to get it right. So we're going to break down exactly how these prediction markets actually work and why some of the biggest, most powerful names on Wall Street are suddenly obsessing over them.
To really understand why everyone is paying attention right now, we have to talk about the number 17. This represents a massive 17-point forecasting failure from the 2024 election cycle. Here's what happened. The most respected pollster in America released a final survey showing Kamala Harris up by 3 points in Iowa. But ultimately, Donald Trump won the state by 14 points. I mean, that is a 17-point swing. A devastating statistical miss from what everybody considered the absolute gold standard of polling. But here's what I found absolutely amazing about this. The prediction markets, which are basically populated by day traders and quant nerds, they had priced in a comfortable Trump victory in Iowa the entire time. They weren't making random phone calls to landlines. They were using billions of dollars in active, daily trading volume to accurately price reality, all while the traditional experts literally missed the mark by a mile.
So you might be wondering, what do these markets actually know that the experts don't? Well, to answer that, we have to look at this brilliant concept from the Austrian economist Friedrich Hayek. Way back in 1945, Hayek argued that true, actionable knowledge isn't just sitting in one place or locked inside one expert's head. It's actually scattered across millions of different people. And he realized something profound. A market price solves the monumental task of coordinating all of that invisible, scattered information. Think of a price as, well, a zip file of reality. Think about the price tag on literally anything you buy at the store. It's doing this invisible math every single day. It strips away all the noise and compresses millions of scattered fragments of private human knowledge into one single actionable signal. So if you create a contract that pays out based on a future event happening, the price of that contract becomes a direct measure of probability, fueled by the collective certainty of everyone who is willing to put their own money on the line.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because what's totally fascinating is that this idea just refuses to die. Betting markets acting as information machines aren't exactly a new thing. Back in 1884, massive curbside betting markets right on Wall Street correctly predicted the winner in 11 out of 15 presidential elections, and this was long before scientific polling even existed. Fast forward to 1988, and a group of, let's say, irritated business professors at a bar in Iowa launched the Iowa electronic markets. It was basically an academic experiment, but it consistently beat the major network polls. Then in 2003, the Department of Defense's DARPA actually tried to launch a market to predict geopolitical events. It got branded a terrorism market and was immediately buried under a bipartisan pile of political cement in about 48 hours. Yet, the concept survived. It all culminated in 2024, when modern internet-based prediction markets thoroughly and very publicly beat the traditional pollsters at their own game.
Okay, so how exactly do these modern platforms work? Basically, they are binary options. That's just a fancy way of saying they're financial agreements that pay off based entirely on a simple yes or no outcome. And honestly, the financial plumbing here is surprisingly elegant. For every verifiable question, there's a yes contract and a no contract. Since only one outcome can actually happen, the combined prices have to equal exactly $1. It's mathematically locked. So if yes is trading at 60 cents, no absolutely has to trade at 40 cents. If those numbers drift even a little bit, high-frequency traders instantly swoop in to scoop up that risk-free profit, mathematically locking the total right back at $1 through arbitrage. And here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Because the payout is always $1, the price of the contract in cents translates directly to a probability percentage. Buying yes at 60 cents means the market is collectively pricing in a precise 60% chance that the event is going to happen. It's not a guess, guys. It is a mathematically locked probability.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows the fierce two-horse race currently dominating the industry, and they represent two entirely opposite philosophies. On one side, we have Kalshi. Think of Kalshi as the straight-A student. It's heavily regulated by the CFTC, operates entirely in everyday US dollars with strict bank-level compliance, and uses a traditional order book model, exactly like the New York Stock Exchange. Then on the other side, you have Polymarket, the offshore crypto rebel.
Polymarket operates entirely on the blockchain, settles everything in USDC stablecoins, and uses an automated market maker algorithm so there's always a price being quoted. It's a fascinating dynamic. Kalshi literally spent years fighting in US courts just to clear a legal path for event betting, while Polymarket basically just routed around the regulations, officially banning US users, but somehow achieving massive global adoption anyway.
And when we look at the sheer financial scale of these platforms, the numbers are just staggering. Looking ahead at year-to-date volume estimates for early 2026, Kalshi is sitting at a massive $37.5 billion, maintaining a pretty solid lead over Polymarket's $29.2 billion. But there's a really fascinating irony buried right here in this data. Kalshi's massive lead is actually driven heavily by a regulatory loophole. Believe it or not, roughly 87% of their trading volume has come from sports event contracts. It's basically acting as a workaround for users living in states where online sports betting just isn't legal. Meanwhile, Polymarket is out there commanding the global geopolitical zeitgeist with these really complex, long-tail event questions, even though it sometimes struggles with the intense engineering friction of running an international exchange entirely on crypto rails.
This immense volume is exactly why the biggest players on Wall Street, I'm talking giants like Citadel Securities and Susquehanna, are suddenly moving in. And we need to be really clear about something. They're not just gambling on who wins an election. No way. They are applying standard institutional strategies to build essential financial infrastructure. First up, arbitrage. That's exploiting price gaps between platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket to lock in mathematical risk-free returns. Next is market making. This is where they act as the house, standing ready to buy or sell to anyone. They provide vital liquidity to the market while earning fractional fees on the trades. And third, hedging. This one is absolutely massive for portfolio managers. Imagine a new law is proposed that might crash a manager's agricultural stocks. Well, they can just go buy a specific event contract that pays out if that bill passes, directly offsetting their loss. This is what gives the whole asset class a really sound industrial logic that goes way, way beyond mere speculation.
However, as we're exploring in this explainer, any rapid financial growth that happens on untested rails usually ends up hitting a wall. Right now, we're in a golden window, but there are some severe structural failure modes already baked into the system. Let's rapid fire through these. First, whale manipulation. This is when a single ultra-rich trader, like the mysterious account Freddy9999, pumps millions into a thin market just to hallucinate a false probability. Then, insider trading, where people with non-public data basically extract cash from everyday retail users. We've also got wash trading, a classic crypto pathology used to fake platform volume. Add in liquidation spirals, which are an absolute disaster waiting to happen if hypervolatile leverage gets applied here. And don't forget reflexivity. That's when market prices actively alter reality, like a high probability of a corporate merger convincing a board to just throw in the towel and stop negotiating. And finally, the ultimate existential threat, a bipartisan political crackdown. Literally one major scandal could cause Congress to drop the hammer and roll back all federal approvals.
Now, speaking of scandals and insider trading, the sheer transparency of these markets creates some incredibly murky regulatory gray zones, and honestly, sometimes a little unintended comedy. Take the entirely true story of Minnesota State Senator Matthew Klein. In what he called a test of the platform, he decided to place a tiny wager on his very own primary race. He claimed he was just, curious about how the app worked. Well, Kalshi's compliance systems instantly flagged the political insider trading, and that single $50 bet got him suspended from the platform for 5 full years. Actually, it's a pretty funny anecdote, but it perfectly illustrates a really profound point. Prediction markets make the link between information, political action, and profit immediate and totally visible to the public in a way that traditional stock trading never really did.
Which brings us to the ultimate philosophical question of this explainer. Does putting a price tag on truth actually crowd out human morality? By moving away from traditional credentialed gatekeepers, we're essentially trading a class based on education for a brand new class based entirely on capital access and risk tolerance. Sure, a highly liquid prediction market can flawlessly calculate that a war is, say, 60% likely to escalate, but it possesses absolutely zero capability to evaluate whether fighting that war is just. If we rely solely on market probabilities, the real danger is that we stop asking what we ought to do and limit ourselves to asking only what will happen. Just as Friedrich Hayek warned, markets are the most powerful coordination mechanisms we've ever invented, but they must never be treated as moral authorities. The truth engine is officially here, and it's remarkably accurate, but ultimately, it's up to us to decide if the future it predicts is actually a future worth living in. What do you think?